Mike, we've got right now the ballot measures have now been designated over for the November election here in California. And we've got a new number on, it's now called Proposition 36, which is basically a redo of Proposition 47. Now, Proposition 47 was called Safe Communities, Safe Schools. And what this particular measure was supposed to do is basically decreased some of the penalties for crimes such as possession of drugs, but it also increased the amount of which you can steal before it became a felony. And so it went down. It went up all the way to $950. So basically, if you stole up to $950, then those items be considered that crime would be considered a misdemeanor. Um, we have seen what has happened with this particular legislation where we have this tremendous increase in retail theft. We've seen all these car break-ins. We've seen basically district attorneys, law enforcement who say, you know what, I don't want to go there anymore because I'm not going to just write up a misdemeanor because the people don't even show up. It's like a fix-it ticket. There has been changes to the laws that have happened over the years where if the police officers don't witness the crime, then can you really charge them for it, or can they really stop them for having committed the crime? Something that just happened in Sacramento yesterday. The city attorney for the city of Sacramento basically told Target, "Stop calling us with all this retail theft that is going on, and because you're becoming a nuisance, and if you continue to call us with the retail theft, we're going to start fining you for being a nuisance." And so it made the evening news last night. The Sacramento Bee wrote about it, and we've got to this point where even a Target, even a business, is now becoming a nuisance to the city because they're reporting on the number of people that are stealing from that particular from that store. And so through all that, you've got the retailers that got together, along with a lot of law enforcement, public district attorneys throughout the state of California, gathered, put together the money, got the signatures, and now we've got this redo of Proposition 47, which is now called Proposition 36, which will now hit the voters in November. The governor just came out this morning actually, and was asked about it, and he said we can't continue back to incarceration. We can't go back to putting people in jail or in prison for some of these crimes. And it's interesting. He noted it. Look at what it's going to cost financially to the state if we go back to those areas. And I think part of it is he's looking to link it together with the deficit that we're currently in right now, the deficit that we're going to be in next year, and it may be a messaging for on his side, not of the crime but of the cost, which I know you and I have had this discussion. There is a cost when crime occurs, and so we're living in kind of this weird world that is California.
Well, there you just said it. Just for everybody that's listening, anybody that's listening, just please be advised this public service announcement. This is not normal. What Hector just described is true, but it is not normal in other states. In other states, if you go into a Walmart or a Target or whatever and you start stealing something, in many cases, the people that are in that store shopping will stop you and get in your face. Certainly, the employees will do that. And certainly, if they call the police won't come and say, we're going to write you a ticket for calling us because this person only stole $500 worth of sweatpants or whatever the hell they're stealing. Um, this is not normal. Okay, so if you accept this, then you'll accept what the governor is telling you about Prop 36, and you'll accept all the other stuff that you get fed. Not normal, not normal behavior. But it is a policy stand. This is the important thing to remember. The way you described it, I think, is excellent because most people don't do it this way. It is a policy. This what has happened with 47 is not in and of itself alone. It is a result, it's an action step, or it's a tactic of an overall strategy which says we want to reduce the number of people in prisons and we want to reduce the number of prisons. Well, most people would look and say, that's wonderful if people aren't committing crimes. No reason to have prisons if you don't have enough people to fill the prisons. But I think if you ask anybody today, whether even progressives today who are getting sick and tired of what all of this stuff is, in San Francisco, in Oakland, and you ask them, they would tell you, we don't mind paying for that. We don't mind paying extra for that because it's going to protect us. More importantly, and I look at it from a small business standpoint, Target has the wherewithal because it is a huge company based out of Minnesota that has stores everywhere that they can absorb that. The mom and pop store doesn't have that. The mom and pop store that has a jewelry store and people come in and smash and grab everything, it's not just the fear that takes place when that happens and the threat of their physical injury, it's all of the things that come afterwards to try and get back on their feet and get back to doing business again. That's where this governor is so completely out of touch and out of tune with the people that create jobs in the state of California, which are the small businesses. And when he decides to withdraw his own proposal to reform 47 because he's got to go to Washington, D.C. to prop up Joe and then go to Michigan to campaign for Joe and doesn't want to piss off the progressives who say, you're turning on us, that tells you all you need to do, all you need to know of where you, as a taxpayer or a small business, are in his list of priorities. It is not normal. And by the way, that part is not normal either. In a lot of states and in many states, even blue states, they welcome small business. They try and help small business. In California, you know, retail theft is a huge issue for them, for liability, for, you know, being forced to pass on the cost to consumers. It's a killer for small business. And to not address it and to embrace what is absolutely failing, you don't have to and you shouldn't stand for it.
Well, and one of the, and especially with so you've got the retail theft, but then you expand it out and you've got the car break-ins. You've got I just her heinous crime, and I know it's happening in different parts where you've got the in the Bay Area specifically where you've got these older Asian women and men who are just getting beat up and robbed.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the San Francisco PD yesterday came out, I believe it was San Francisco PD came out, and they asked her, um, "Are you going to charge this as a hate crime?" And she says, "Nope, not charging it as a hate crime. It was the attack. Someone, these attacks are happening because they're older." And the reporter, and while they're happening
It's
to
a
Asians specifically because in large numbers. Are you going to? And just nope. They just happen to be older. That's it. More
Is it
vulnerable
a
and
special?
older.
I mean, I don't. I'm not a lawyer. Don't pretend to be a lawyer. But isn't attack on the elderly a special circumstance the
I
same way it is
believe
for
it is.
kids?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
it is. But
So it
what
has
do you,
nothing to do with. You're right, though. I mean, if that was a black person, the state of California would write that person a check. But there, it absolutely, people are being targeted for their vulnerability.
but
That's what
what
they're being
what it's
targeted.
going to is this idea of I don't want to charge on something higher. I want to charge something lower. I want to figure out, and even if I've got to go do this jujitsu on words. It's about charging someone with a lesser crime so they don't have to. It's this idea of rehabilitation over incarceration, and as we noted a little earlier, where is the rehabilitation? Where are these changes? It's I find it interesting with a lot of these politicians is they want to increase taxes to have you stop a certain behavior. They want to increase the fee or they want to increase the penalty. When they want you to conserve water, what do they tell you? We're going to increase the tax on water, or we're going to increase the fee on water. We're going to penalize you. We're going to send out the people to go make sure you're not watering on the wrong day. And if you are, then we are going to fine you. There's a penalty that goes along with wanting to make sure you stop a certain behavior. But when it comes with crime, it's the complete opposite.
Hmm.
It's we want to go out and give you an extra long hug. We want to go out and say, hey, it's not your fault. You were hugged too much or you weren't hugged enough. and
too
so
much sugar
we're gonna
in your
find all
diet.
these different alternatives. Yeah, and it's
Yeah. Well, again, that's a policy decision that people's elected officials are making. That they don't want more prisons, they don't want more people in jail, they don't think, your elected officials don't think that it's a heinous crime to go beat up elderly Asian people, um, and a special crime at that. Um, these are the people you put in office. These are the people that run the show. So I mean, it's kudos to the retailers, kudos to the district attorneys, because none of these people got in the business that they're in. The district attorneys, the judge, even the judges, certainly the police and the first responders, they didn't get into their business, into that line of work, to sit with their hands tied at a desk behind their back. I mean, they got in there to do something and to change something, and in many cases, as with the police, risk their lives doing it. So I can't think that they're all that thrilled with the fact, and they get the brunt of it. That's the
right,
other thing. Is like they're the ones that are first ones on the scene, and people are like, hey, what's going on? How come they're able to do this? And they get the brunt of it when they shouldn't be. The people that should be getting the brunt of this is whoever you elected to be your assemblyman or your senator or your governor, or your district attorney, and go after them because it's their policies that are causing this to happen. Their decision to make coddling criminals, reducing prisons, and reducing prison population a priority over your safety or the health and welfare of your business.
right.
That's where they should go, not to the police. And I got to tell you, when I hear something like the Sacramento Police Department saying something like that to a major retailer, and if I'm a small business in Sacramento, I'm finding a way to get the hell out of there right now,
Yeah.
because even though it might be profitable, even though I might have a clientele, if basically they're telling Target to go pound sand, what chances I, of a little small business that maybe employs 5 people, have if Target, this monolith, is being told to go to hell by the police?
Right.
That's crazy. That's
It,
just
it
crazy.
is. It is. It's obviously gotten quite a bit of comments and people feeling outraged by it. But unless it's interesting, and I give credit to the reporters. Unless this thing is being reported, then a lot of it just goes kind of by the wayside. I
Right.
mean, and that's the thing is we get to see it, but it's I find it interesting too where you've got these politicians saying, look, crime isn't as bad. We've got a decrease on crime here. We've got a decrease on, on that's about the only thing that they can't really hide is the homicides.
Mm-hmm.
That's one statistic. There's a body there. Okay, it's dead. That's probably one of the only ones they really can't hide. But all the other stuff, it's like this tyranny of numbers. They try to figure out ways to try to make you believe as though things are getting better. And even though you're seeing it and you're feeling it, and it's this idea of, well, we just can't go out and do the same thing. And that's kind of their message. We can't go out and go back to the past of incarceration because of the cost, and because we need to provide people with a second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 12th, 20th chance, to get themselves better.
And go ask the couple from, I think it was Australia or New Zealand, in
New
Fashion
Zealand, yeah,
Island.
yeah,
They came here to shop. By the way, do you not think that doesn't cause international ripples? I mean, people come to Fashion Island from around the world to shop. People come to California, for the beaches and the mountains and everything else that California is blessed with. Um, you have that kind of stuff happening in a place, and that's the problem. And well, that's not just the problem, but that's what really highlights it. If if it happens, and people may get upset about me saying this, if it happens in South Central LA or something like that, it's like, okay, it happened there. But when it happens in other places, when the retail theft starts hitting, stores in Hollywood or West Hollywood, and murders start happening in Fashion Island, what it says to people, you can have all the best statistics in the world, you still feel unsafe. So you can tell me all of the numbers in the world that you want, but there's a couple from New Zealand that's not going home that came to California to have a good time and spend money here, and they're dead. And they weren't in a place that you would expect it to happen. That's the kind of stuff that rattles people. That's the kind of stuff that makes people think that could be me.
Well,
And
right.
that's people better vote on this thing that way with that feeling because you know you have a you have a unique opportunity. What's going to be interesting to me, and I think we should track this. What does Rob Bonta put together as a narrative? You
Right.
know, I
Well,
mean that's going to be interesting.
the last narrative was Kamala Harris when she was the Attorney General.
Oh, really?
She did the Prop 47, right? And you know, and
Ah,
going back to
I,
going
I
back,
I bet there are some people that didn't know that.
yeah, Kamala Harris, she was the Attorney General at the time on Prop 47. But you know, going back
Ah,
to something you mentioned, you know, for folks that minorities or folks that live in some of these more
hmm,
tough neighborhoods,
right,
and we finally, you know, and they see all this publicity happening, like for example what happened in New Zealand, and you know there's three or four dead over in South Central, in East
right,
LA, or some of these other areas. You know, we're left wondering, why aren't you covering these two with the same type of zeal as
exactly,
you're covering these other things? Why, you know,
absolutely.
it's we had this issue over MacArthur Park, and it was there for the long, and I've got to believe it's still there, where you've got the gangs that have this that are, you know, go to the small business and say, look, you're going to pay me a tax every single week.
Yeah, it's a
And it's
shakedown.
and for some places it's, you know, it's a shakedown of $10, $50, but they hit all these little stores, and
Mm,
it's this intimidation thing. And so it isn't until it gets so out of hand that someone does something about it. I mean,
right.
in the avenues, this was several years ago. This is outdoor Highland Park. There was a situation where if you were black and you were walking down the street or in the neighborhood, the gang there, the avenues, they shot you. And there were several people that got shot at, and some, you know, a couple folks that were just one out jogging, one that was waiting at a bus stop. And so, you know, the FBI came in there and did this whole roundup of these gang members in this thing. And so they arrested a whole bunch of them. But it has to get to that point, and that's the problem. Is it, you know, it doesn't become, you know, as much publicized as you got this death in New Zealand. You know, one of the good things is you got more people on social media, so you got more people with cameras out that can cover
Capture
more of
this
these
stuff.
issues. But at the same time, it's, you know, they're reeling with a lot of this crime that at times just makes you feel unsafe and makes you feel you know, with that you've got no voice in it.
You do have a voice. It's with your vote,
Yeah,
or with your feet if you can do it and get away from it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the press will focus on some of these high profile kind of things. What it does is it instills that sense of unease in people. Um, but they need to realize this is happening, and the people that are in those communities are the most at risk because that's people that commit crimes go back to where they were from. It's not like okay, some guy from the Palisades, uh, Pacific Palisades, is doing all of this stuff, and so they're unsafe in their own houses. And when you have that kind of fear of your safety, that's a fundamental thing that shakes people, and they should be shaken by it. And there's just it just strikes me that again, I go back to what I said in the beginning, the way you phrased it. This is a policy decision, and the policy decision is what comes first: the safety of the people, or a policy that says we want to reduce prison population. They don't have an alternative as to how to reduce the prison population without putting people in prison. They don't have that. If they did, you wouldn't have people 20 times, convicted out on the street doing it 21 times. They haven't figured that part out. And so, right now, there's these two stark choices. And I don't think they have the capability, the government has the capability of figuring out what is that piece that is somewhere in the middle that says, okay, we're gonna remove them from the general safety, provide safety for people, but give them an opportunity to do better. Obviously, that's not happening. So,
Yep. Yeah.
if that's your stock choice, more people in prison, safer on the streets, or less prisons, so you can walk around and when you run for president, whenever that is, say, hey, I reduced the number of prisons, while people are getting shot, killed, maimed, robbed, and everything else, that's a policy decision. And, people will have an opportunity to vote on 36, and, can make their decision based on those two options. I mean, but it will be interesting to see what Bonta puts on as a title for the initiative,
Well,
knowing
not
how they do that.
right, not just a ballot, description or designation, but also the other thing would be interesting is because we see it right now in a lot of the committees where, and I'm surprised, and it floors me by how many prison advocates there are or organizations. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm always floored by where the heck do they get all this funding? It's like, how do all these people who are advocating for people who are in jail, who are on death row, who are convicted of murder with no possibility of parole? It's like, where the hell did all these people come from? That now advocate, and at
Right.
times their voices are drowning out the voices of the victims. And so
Mm-hmm.
we've gotten to the point where you've got a lot of folks within state government, local government that are giving far more rights to the criminals than the victims themselves.
Right.
And so, and I believe that over the last couple of years, we've seen kind of a pendulum shift. But as far as how this measure gets fought out in this election, which we're like 4 months away from, you know, um, when it gets out there into making the commercials and everything else, it'll be interesting to see what the voters of California say, and by what margin.
Mm-hmm. I think they're ready. I do think the voters are ready to say enough is enough. I think you see constituencies, like I said, that are fed up even with the mayor of Oakland. Um, and, we've seen it in San Francisco. The question's going to be how is it packaged and how is it sold? Because what it actually what 36 actually is, and the way it's going to be presented by the other side that's going to have unlimited money, is going to be very interesting to watch. But this is a chance for people to say enough is enough. Um, and if they don't, I mean, what worries me is even if they do, because of the court system in California, even if, I mean, I think if you ask the question, do you want more prisons and people in prison, or do you want, you know, more people being put out on the street? It's an 80-20 issue. Um, but, the sale of it and the way they're going to package it and attack it is going to be interesting. But even if it does pass, what worries me is we have a judicial system, and we've seen it in California, where even if, what was
The
um,
Taxpayer Protection Act.
yeah, the Taxpayer Protection Act, freedom of speech. Okay, Gavin Newsom's running around. Freedom of California, come to California. We got freedom of choice, freedom of speech, freedom to love. And it's like, yeah, but not if you're a taxpayer. You don't get the freedom of speech and you don't get the freedom of choice. Over a million people signed a petition to put something on the ballot. And the governor and his people go to the California Supreme Court and have it knocked off the ballot against the will. I mean, forget whether you're for it or not. Over a million people voted to put it on the ballot. They don't care. There's no freedom there. They knock it off the ballot. So I mean, that's what you're dealing with in California there, and it's just a matter of, are people had enough to say, I'm not going to buy whatever BS they're selling on 36. I want to have a safe neighborhood. I want to be able to not worry about going to the mall and shopping and getting robbed or assaulted. I want to have a business that I know when I call the police, A, they will come and they will have the authority and power to take someone into custody and put him in jail for stealing and causing me harm in my business. That's what the people have the right
Right.
to express on 36, and I sure hope they do it.
Well, Mike, we'll keep everyone informed as to how this measure unfolds in the next couple of weeks, and especially as we get closer to the election. So great seeing you, Mike, and say hi to Brady and say hi to Julie for me.
I will. Take care. Thanks, everybody.